I need to warn you about the Morrigan. On paper, it's a slam dunk, a deep dive into Irish folklore, a vengeful pagan war goddess, and the legendary James Cosmo lending some gravitas to a remote island excavation. It has all the ingredients for a high-atmosphere folk horror masterpiece. But instead of a haunting descent into Gaelic madness, we've been handed a dull gray slog that manages to make ancient deities look like a budget cosplay from a 2016 superhero flop. If you're looking for the next Banshees of Inisherin meets The Exorcist, you might want to keep rowing, because this island is barren. The aesthetic here is a late-night VOD gloom. It's a film that mistakes a desaturated flat color palette for gritty realism. Everything is a muddy shade of charcoal and slate, which I assume is meant to evoke the damp, oppressive atmosphere of Northern Ireland. But in execution, it just looks cheap. It's a vibey movie that lacks actual vibes. There is one saving grace in the atmosphere though, the score. The use of eerie, discordant bagpipes creates a genuine sense of dread that the visuals simply fail to back up. It's a haunting soundscape trapped in a very ugly movie. Today we're breaking down why the supernatural slasher fails to launch. I'm going to tell you exactly where the gears grind to a halt and whether those bagpipes are enough to justify the price of a rental, all without spoiling a single beat of the third act. We follow Dr. Fiona Scott, an archaeologist who clearly hasn't watched enough horror movies. As she drags her rebellious teenage daughter Lily to a remote Annan island, Fiona is there to dig up an ancient Gaelic tomb, spurred on by a boss who is about as dismissive as a corporate HR email. The stakes are established early. This isn't just a pile of rocks, it's a burial casket containing a mummified figure that has been sealed away for centuries for a very good reason. When the seal is inevitably broken, they don't just find bones, they release the Morrigan, a Celtic goddess of war and fate. The conflict shifts from an archaeological study to a fight for survival when a violent storm rolls in, cutting the island off from the mainland. This isn't just a ghost story though, it's a biological takeover. The Morrigan needs a vessel, and she sets her sights on Lily. We're left with a mother-daughter dynamic strained by possession. A local innkeeper played by Toby Stevens, who knows more than he's letting on, and James Cosmo as a priest who is the only thing standing between a teenage girl and a total pagan apocalypse. Let's get into the meat of this thing, or the lack thereof. When you're dealing with folk horror, you expect a slow burn, a gradual tightening of the noose. But the Morrigan doesn't burn, it just sits there like damp wood. The pacing is glacial in all the wrong ways. There's a difference between atmospheric buildup and nothing is happening. And Colum Eastwood spends the first hour firmly in the latter. We get the endless shots of Fiona looking at dusty tablets and Lily moping around the island. But there's no mounting tension. There's no sense of the walls closing in. It's a 90-minute movie that feels like a 3-hour Sunday school lesson on why you shouldn't touch old boxes. Visually, this movie is a tragedy. I mentioned the flat gray palette, but it goes deeper than that. This is digital cinematography at its most uninspired. It has that straight to streaming sheen where everything is perfectly in focus but has zero character. In a movie about a war goddess, I want texture. I want the mud of Ireland to feel like it's under my fingernails. Instead, it looks like it was shot on a backlot with a light overcast filter. And we have to talk about the effects. When the supernatural elements finally kick in, we're greeted with some of the most egregious CGI I've seen in 2026. There are sequences involving crows and snakes that look like they're rendered on a PlayStation 3. There's a specific moment where the darkness begins to manifest, and it looks like a screensaver from 1996. It completely breaks the immersion. If you can't afford CG, use a puppet or some shadows. If you watch this channel enough, you'll know I'll take a rubber suit and some corn syrup over bad pixels any day. Speaking of the look, the Morrigan finally shows her face via the possessed Lily. It's a total creative bankruptcy. It looks exactly like the Enchantress from 2016 Suicide Squad. We're talking stringy black hair, the smeared ancient makeup, the twitchy, look how creepy I am movements. It's a derivative design that lacks any of the terrifying majesty a pagan war goddess should command. I'll throw a bone to the audio department though. The bagpipes I mentioned earlier, they are doing a lot of heavy lifting. There's a scene early on when Fiona first enters the tomb where the score creates this low vibrating hum that actually, it's kind of skin crawling. It's a shame that the movie doesn't have the visual stones to match that intensity the score did. If you watch this with your eyes closed, you'd think you were experiencing a pretty good movie. James Cosmo is the MVP here, mostly because he's James Cosmo. He brings a level of, I've seen some things, gravitas to the role of the priest that the script honestly doesn't deserve. He treats the material with more respect than it gives him. Toby Stephens is fine as the innkeeper, but he keeps playing the suspicious local number one so straight that you can predict his every line 3 minutes before he says it. Saffron Burrows tries her best with Fiona, but the character is written so flatly. She's just a concerned mom who is also a scientist. And then there's no room for her to actually breathe. And you never feel her passion for the archaeology or her fear for her daughter. You just see an actress hitting marks. As we head into the back half, the film tries to pivot into a slasher in a tomb vibe, but there are a few moments where the possession leads to some bloody outbursts. But even the scary parts feel sterilized. There's a sequence in a cramped hallway that should have been claustrophobic and terrifying, but because the lighting is so bright and the CGI is so distracting, the tension just evaporates. We're left waiting for a twist or a payoff that justifies the hour of gray screens you just endured. I go into every movie wanting to like it. An Irish Exorcist with a slasher twist sounds like a perfect Friday night, but the Morrigan is a hollow vessel. It lacks the scares of a slasher, the dread of folk horror, and the visual flair required to make its mythology feel ancient or powerful. It is cheap, it is dull, and it is a massive missed opportunity for a director who showed so much promise with the original short film. I'm giving The Morrigan 1 out of 5 stars. Save your money, go watch The Wicker Man or The Ritual again. At least those movies know how to make a forest look threatening. But I toss it over to you. What did you think of The Morrigan? Am I being too harsh? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and consider subscribing. And if you want to support the channel a little further, I have a 99-cent YouTube membership down below. You just have to hit that join button. And I'll see you in the next one.